Welcome to JGTCR, I'm Cope, and today we are tuning the Aston Martin DBR9 GT1. Let's get into it. The DBR9 GT1 is a well-rounded intermediate race car. The handling is more than adequate for the application, however it can seem a bit dull when pushing hard. The power delivery is good, but it can get loose on acceleration, especially at high RPM when any kind of turning degree is applied. Naturally, the lower gears have more trouble with wheel spin, so easing on the throttle is advised for best results and lap times. This DBR9 does not punish us too harshly if we are slightly heavy-handed on the throttle. This makes it a good foundation for learning throttle modulation. The brakes are fairly solid and pull up the car well. However, they can seem a bit lazy, so it is advised to pull brake markers up a touch. Let's jump ahead and collect our time. 6 minutes 36.2 seconds. Let's take a look at the tune. The tune for the DBR9 is relatively par for the course. The natural frequency is softer at the rear than the front. This provides better traction through turns. We did have some issues with understeer. To address this, we have used multiple approaches. The body height adjustment has the nose slightly lower than the rear. The anti-roll bar was made softer at the front than the rear, and an extra full point of camber was added to the front. And finally, we added 10 kilos of ballast at a ballast positioning of -40 over the front wheels. And with all that, our steering was made manageable. Let's see it in action on the Nürburgring. When completely modified, the DBR9 GT1 sees an all-round improvement in performance. Unfortunately, there is also an amplification of some issues, namely the understeer and also a slow steering reaction. Fortunately, we were able to tune most of this out, but we can still feel it mildly from time to time. The power has increased and so has the frequency of wheel spin. The power output is far more Peaky Blinders, especially in the lower gears. So it is imperative to use everything we learned from driving the factory model and modulate the throttle really well on acceleration. The power delivery in the top end of the higher gears has improved dramatically. It can still lose traction, but it's not as detrimental to the drive. The upgraded brakes are still a good match for this application and have lost that lazy feel they once had. Let's head to the checkered flag and collect our time. 6 minutes 18.7 seconds. And now the drift tune. The drift tune for the DBR9 sees us removing the supercharger. The power delivery was just far too aggressive. The chassis itself was not happy drifting, so we went to some extreme measures to get it to comply. Of particular interest is the ballast of 200 kilos at a ballast positioning of 40 over the rear wheels. The rear suspension settings are extreme in one way or the other, and acceleration sensitivity of the differential has been reduced to 50%. It's drift time. It is very rare to find a modern race chassis on GT7 that lends itself well to drift. Is the DBR9 GT1 one of those rare chassis? Absolutely not. We had to go to many extremes to get this Aston Martin to drift, and those extremes make themselves known in the feel when drifting this vehicle. While the handling works well enough to control the vehicle, the feedback via the inputs has us battling with understeer and grip alternating through the front wheels. While this mostly occurs through switching and transitions, it can also be a factor when adjusting drift angle mid-turn. The power delivery is still a touch too aggressive and can force the rear of the vehicle the whole way around if we are careless with our technique. The additional weight over the rear wheels is a double-edged sword. While it provides more push power and directional drift from the rear wheels, it also provokes heavier swings of the tail during transitions that can drag us off circuit and is the cause of our steering anomalies. So while this Aston Martin can drift, it certainly is not comfortable. The Aston Martin DBR9 GT1 is an awesome intermediate race car. In factory trim, it provides a good foundation for racing and gives us room to grow while learning about throttle modulation. When completely modified and tuned, it steps up once again and forces us to refine our throttle modulation with an increase in power. On the drift circuit, it can compete, it's just not competitive. And that's all we have for you today, so until next time, keep racing!